You wake up tired. It doesn't matter how many hours you slept. It doesn't matter if it was deep sleep or interrupted. You wake up tired. And throughout the day, while you execute your tasks, answer your emails, update your social media, fulfill your commitments, there's an exhaustion that isn't just physical. It's something deeper, more invasive. It's as if your very soul is operating in the red, constantly overloaded, constantly in debt to itself. Welcome to the Burnout Society. Welcome to the world that Byung-Chul Han diagnosed with surgical precision that cuts us to the bone. A world where burnout is no longer an exception, no longer the result of a poorly organized life or wrong choices. Burnout has become the default condition of modern existence. And this, my dear listener, is not an accident. It's a project. Pause for a moment and observe your breathing. Is it accelerated? Is it shallow? When was the last time you breathed deeply without it being a conscious relaxation exercise? When was the last time your chest expanded naturally, without rush, without agenda, without the sensation that time is always slipping through your fingers like sand? Han presents us with a devastating truth. We live in a society that has transformed exhaustion into virtue, depletion into merit, and the inability to stop into a sign of productivity. We are no longer exploited by others. We are our own exploiters. And the most perverse thing about all this is that we believe we are free. Byung-Chul Han is not just a philosopher. He is an archaeologist of our contemporary pain. Born in South Korea and based in Germany, Han excavates the sedimented layers of our neoliberal society and finds something that should terrify us. We have discovered a form of domination so sophisticated that the victim becomes voluntary, so efficient that the oppressed transforms into their own oppressor. In the disciplinary society that Foucault described, we were controlled by no. Don't do this, don't go there, don't think like that. There was a brutal clarity in oppression. We knew what to fight against. But Han shows us that we have evolved into something much more sinister, the performance society, where control operates through yes, yes, you can do everything, yes, you must optimize yourself, yes, you are responsible for your own success, your own happiness, your own fulfillment. And there lies the existential trap. When we fail, when we burn out, when we enter burnout, we don't blame the system. We blame ourselves. I'm not disciplined enough. I don't have focus. I need to try harder. The performance subject, as Han calls it, is simultaneously master and slave of themselves. Think about how many times you've said or heard, "I chose this," as if choice in itself were a guarantee of freedom. But Han confronts us with an uncomfortable question. What if our choices weren't really free? What if we were choosing within a predetermined menu, believing we're exercising our autonomy, when, in reality, we're just executing a program? The perverse genius of the current system is that it doesn't need to force us to work until exhaustion. We push ourselves there. We create our own cages and then boast about the architecture. We develop a narcissistic relationship with our own exploitation, where suffering becomes proof of dedication, where exhaustion becomes a badge of honor. Marcus Aurelius, in his Meditations, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But Han shows us how this power over the mind has been captured, how our own inner fortress has been colonized by the imperative of performance. We no longer control our thoughts. They are controlled by the logic of optimization, efficiency, maximization. Seneca spoke about the importance of creative leisure, of time for philosophical reflection. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. He said, "But we live in a society that has abolished endings, that has transformed life into a race without a finish line, where stopping means failing, where resting means wasting potential. Now let's get to what really matters, how this is happening in your life, at this exact moment, while you listen to these words." Han identifies three central mechanisms of the burnout society that operate in you, through you, and you probably don't even notice. First, toxic positivity. Have you noticed how everything needs to be positive nowadays? Your social media feed is an endless parade of motivation, forced gratitude, good morning warriors, and focus on the solution. Han calls this the violence of positivity, a constant pressure to be well, to be motivated, to be growing. There's no space for productive melancholy, for sadness that teaches us, for boredom that connects us with our humanity. When you feel sadness, you immediately look for a way to solve it. When you feel boredom, you grab your phone. When you feel anxiety, you seek a productivity technique. But Han suggests something radical. What if these states weren't problems to be solved, but fundamental aspects of human experience that we're pathologizing in the name of efficiency? Second, multitasking as a form of self-violence. You believe you can do several things at once, and that this is a skill. But Han shows us that multitasking isn't multiplication of capacity. It's division of attention. It's a systematic way of never being completely present in anything, of never experiencing the depth of a single experience. Every time you check WhatsApp while working, every time you listen to a podcast while walking, every time you answer emails during a conversation, you're practicing a subtle form of dissociation. You're training your mind to never be entirely where you are. And this has an enormous existential cost. You lose the capacity to be present for your own life. Third, the gamification of existence. Your life has become a game where you need to accumulate points, steps in the walking app, likes on social media, certificates in online courses, professional achievements, reading goals, meditation streaks. Everything needs to be measurable. Everything needs to generate data. Everything needs to demonstrate progress. But Han asks, where are you in this equation? Where is the human being behind the metrics? You've become a project of yourself, a personal company in constant development. But you've forgotten that true development sometimes means stopping, sometimes means going backward, sometimes means simply being without any specific purpose. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But we live in an era where we don't have time or space to form our own judgments. We receive prefabricated judgments through algorithms, through influencers, through life coaches who sell happiness formulas as if they were medications. Kierkegaard spoke about anxiety as the dizziness of freedom, the terror we feel facing infinite possibilities of choice. But Han shows us that this anxiety has been captured by the market. They've transformed our existential vertigo into FOMO, fear of missing out. Your anxiety is no longer a sign that you're alive and conscious. It's a sign that you're not optimizing your opportunities. And burnout? Burnout is your body and mind screaming, "Enough!" It's the moment when the project of yourself collapses, when the performance machine you've become simply can't function anymore. But instead of seeing burnout as a sign that something is fundamentally wrong with the system, we treat it as an individual failure that needs to be fixed through more self-help, more wellness techniques, more optimization. We've reached the moment of truth. If Han is right, and all evidence suggests he is, then what do we do? How do we escape from a prison we built ourselves? How do we free ourselves from chains we can't even see? The answer isn't in more productivity. It's not in time management techniques. It's not in meditation apps or mindfulness courses. The answer lies in a much more radical revolution, the revolution of contemplation. Han proposes something that sounds almost heretical in our society: the right to boredom, the right to unproductivity, the right to exist without justification, without metrics, without measurable progress. He invites us to rediscover what he calls vita contemplativa, a life that isn't constantly chasing goals, but that has space to simply observe, reflect, be. This isn't laziness. This is resistance. It's a revolutionary act in a society that has commoditized every second of your existence. When you decide to sit, without doing anything, without consuming content, without producing results, you're refusing to participate in the grand theater of constant performance. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." But Han shows us that the real waste isn't inactivity. It's hyperactivity without purpose. It's rushing without direction. It's perpetual motion that prevents us from arriving anywhere meaningful. The contemplation that Han defends isn't escapism. It's diving deep. It's the courage to face your own existence without the constant distractions that the performance society offers. It's discovering who you are when you remove all the tasks, all the goals, all the self-improvement projects. Marcus Aurelius practiced an exercise he called the view from above, imagining himself observing his life from high up, as if he were an astronaut looking at Earth. From this perspective, many of the urgencies that consume us reveal their real insignificance. Han invites us to a view from above of our society, to perceive how we are small hamsters running on a wheel that doesn't take us anywhere, just keeps us busy. But attention, this isn't a call to nihilism or inaction. It's a call to conscious action, to deliberate choices, to a life that isn't just reaction to external stimuli, but authentic expression of your own will. Nietzsche spoke about the importance of becoming who you are. But how can you become who you are if you never stop long enough to discover who you are? How can you develop your own will if you're constantly responding to productivity demands that others created for you? The path that Han suggests is simple in theory, revolutionary in practice. Start protecting spaces of unproductivity in your life, not spaces to relax so you can work better later. That would still be performance logic. Spaces that have no justification beyond the fact that you are a human being and deserve to exist without having to constantly prove your worth through results. Start small. A walk without a podcast, without music, without a specific destination. A meal without your phone, without television, just you and the experience of eating. A moment of the day when you simply sit and observe your breathing, not as a relaxation technique, but as an act of pure presence. Sartre said that man is condemned to be free, but Han shows us that we've transformed this condemnation into a poisoned blessing. We've created the illusion of freedom through infinite consumption of empty choices. True freedom isn't having infinite options. It's having the courage to choose consciously, including the courage to choose, not to do, not to produce. The burnout you feel isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of humanity. It's your being refusing to be completely reduced to a performance machine. It's the deepest part of you screaming that there's something beyond constant optimization, something beyond the endless race. Han offers us a vision of the future that isn't dystopian or utopian, but simply more human. A society where a person's value isn't measured only by their productivity, where time can be inhabited instead of just managed, where contemplation isn't seen as unproductive luxury, but as existential necessity. The choice is before you now. You can continue running on the wheel, believing you're progressing when you're really just keeping busy. Or you can begin to practice the most subversive art of our time, the art of stopping, of being present, of existing without justification. Because in the end, my dear listener, your life isn't a project to be optimized. It's an experience to be lived. And true experience requires time, requires attention, requires the revolutionary courage to do nothing but be completely where you are. Burnout is the price we pay for forgetting this. Contemplation is the way back home, to the home that is yourself, stripped of all performances, all metrics, all self-improvement projects. Han doesn't offer us easy solutions because there are no easy solutions, but he offers something more valuable: clarity about the problem. And clarity, as any Stoic philosopher would tell you, is the first step toward wisdom. And wisdom, unlike information, cannot be consumed. It can only be cultivated in the fertile silence of contemplation. The revolution begins when you turn off this audio and simply sit for 5 minutes, doing absolutely nothing. That's your first act of resistance in a society that has made burnout normal. Do you have the courage